what are the roots of what are the and we'll put links and everything to the town hall. What are the roots of DIAC? When did it get started? Sort of some of the people that sort of pushed it forward and got it going. What's that story? Either one of you want to take that question.
Teresa, if you want to start, and I can piggyback on with you.
Absolutely. So my understanding of so definitely the CIM Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Committee predates my time and my involvement in CIM. But it started in early 2013, and it really was a response to industry requesting CIM to support various diversity initiatives. And I note in one of our documents where it says that, to our knowledge, anyways, we were really the first national association to create such a committee. And in May 2015, the committee agreed that it should be renamed as the CIM Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Committee. So those are kind of the roots. It was really in response to the industry. So look, our industry has been trying, and it's really nice to see that there's huge history behind this organization.
And I think the other thing I'll add is when we started, and it does predate me, I was not around in 2013, but I remember a colleague of mine said, "Hey, we have this committee meeting, you should join." And I attended the first time just as an observer. And it occurred to me when I sat in that first meeting, and similarly as we're discussing now, the issues are, and I say not issues, the challenge we have ahead of us is bigger than us. And there's a lot we can all do, but it's all of us come from technical backgrounds, we're engineers. We tend to think linearly, cause and effect. But this was one when I started realizing there's multiple ways, there are multiple solutions. There's no just direct answer. And that made me realize that as the average person, we're sitting around, why isn't it happening? Why is it taking so long? It's 2021 and we're still talking about diversity, but it's quite the challenge to unpack. There's a lot of factors.
Hmm. Has there been people like I Teresa, you mentioned one time Roy Slack, I believe he was involved in it. I mean, he was involved in getting Mining Now going as well. He's a very I don't even know if the right word is. I think he is forward thinking, but I think he's very when he sees something of value and that's important, he doesn't just let it go by. He focuses in on it and will give his time to it. It just, I mean, I've gotten to know him, a bit from a distance, but he's been involved in it as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, and I think just identifying Roy is one thing I will say about the leadership that CIM has had over the last couple of years that I've been involved in have really been leaders that recognize the value of diversity and inclusion in mining, and they do that in action. So one thing that stands out for me for Roy actually is around. I think he was the first person who really started to introduce me to the concept of diversity shares. And he talked about how in the meetings for council and CIM, they would use diversity shares in opening up their meetings. And again, it's those leaders that over the years have made the diversity and inclusion conversation alive and well. And I just want to shout out that CIM, what I like about this organization is it really walks the talk when it comes to diversity and inclusion in the sense that it's not something that they just tell, industry do this. If you look at CIM and you look at the committees, the way that they set up the conferences, you really see intentional effort by CIM to ensure that it's being very inclusive in who's actually at the table making decisions.
Hmm. What is sort of the, over the next, let's say 2, 3 years, and going beyond that, what are some of the goals of the organization of DIAC with under the CIM umbrella? But as that stream, what is going to be their focus?
I think when we started talking about 2013, when I said, oh, you know what, the inception was 2013, 2015, then the name DIAC was really made more official, and here we are in 2021, and we're still talking about diversity and inclusion. So I think what I want to land to all of us here today is that this is not a sprint; it's more like a marathon that keeps going, and you keep getting better. Okay, so if I look at the goals and objectives of DIAC, so some of the goals were to provide guidance to the CIM executive and council on all things D&I related. So somebody might say to you, well, Theresa, is that done? No, it's not done, because we get new culture all the time. We get new executives, we get new council. So that work is not going to be done, but it continues to continuously improve.
Mhm.
The next one is around align with CIM strategic plan in terms of diversity and inclusion. Again, we keep learning things as a society, right? We're learning new terminology. We're getting more versed on diversity dimensions that many of us didn't know existed, but are now we're more aware. Some of our work is around helping to link CIM's D&I message around the business, so that people understand the business case of the industry. And we do this through our publications, electric communications, conferences, and outreach programs. So this is ongoing work that we're solidifying, getting into sustained mode, and just making sure that all the content that CIM puts out continues to evolve with society, and that we don't stay stagnant. So, you asked about the 2 to 3 year vision. For me, it's around really getting to a point where it's in our very DNA that this is how we do business, but at the same time, pivoting with what else society is teaching us and making sure that we don't lag behind.
Mm. Mohammed, over to you to sort of add on to that. What do you see is where do you see it needs to get to, and sort of how does it need to get there? Is it, and because of that sort of that marathon example, and I don't think it is ever done, because I mean people will continue to be people, and there's always going to be switches in perspectives and how we need to approach things. So sort of what's that marathon approach for you? Part of the organization and even personally.
Sure. I'll start off with just part of the organization and, building off of Teresa's marathon analogy, which is actually a very good analogy. And, it demonstrates the effort, the training, as well as the preparation and the long-term goals. But also, as CIM, we've also spent a lot of time this year trying to understand where we fit within that spectrum as well. And I say within the spectrum, diversity is a subject that is being talked about by multiple organizations, multiple industry organizations. How do we leverage each other? How do we build off each other and not duplicate or cause confusing messages? So there's various organizations that are set up for the actual training and implementation. There's some that are set up for educational components. There's some set up for outreach. We realize that the CIM has a technical networking knowledge base where we share best practices. CIM was formed on the premise of the mining industry sharing best practice stemming from the technology side, right?
Right.
So sharing best practice is really our niche. And so what we want to do is to say, answer the question that says not about why diversity. We want to answer the question, how are we going to do it? Let's roll up our sleeves and let's figure out how and learn from each other, because, as Theresa said, it's a marathon and we're going to learn along the way. It's not a solid, it's not a slam dunk right away, because there's things we're going to learn as we all evolve. Ultimately, my end goal personally is that diversity isn't a topic anymore. I really don't want it to be a topic. I think, the three of us, we're sitting here and all the audience, we all may look different. We all probably think differently. We're all the same inside. We all bleed the same. And that's the part that I just want to be able to overcome. I would love, personally, for my child, when he turns on the news, doesn't feel like he is a target or a victim. That's the personal aspect I have, because we've been here 3 generations, but still I have to keep describing where we're from. And I'd like to eventually stop that.